Travel and tourism has been recognized as a possible engine for economic growth in Botswana for decades, as evidenced in the rhetoric found in budget speeches from years ago. But despite the acknowledgement that the industry could greatly further diversification efforts and the measures implemented towards growing the industry, the sector's contribution to GDP has not surpassed a 4.5% contribution to GDP in the past 10 years. Although the industry almost doubled from a contribution of 1.9% in 1995 to 3.6% a decade later, growth has remained pretty stagnant since then. Our guest this evening, the Minister of Environment, Wildlife and Tourism, Tekedi Khama, says despite real challenges, there are some exciting opportunities within the industry. Tonight he begins the first of what will be a two-part overview of the travel and tourism industry right here on First Issues. Welcome to the show. Good evening and welcome back to the first in our two-part overview of the travel and tourism sector in Botswana with the Minister of Environment, Wildlife and Tourism. An exchange that took place recently at the National Monument that is Bonington Farm. He begins our in-depth conversation by giving us his vision and philosophy for the sector.
Our tourism sector, the way I see it, is that it's not specific to one particular idea. And I think we need to break it up into several ideas. First of all, we need to look at domestic tourism. And then we have to then consider the number of visitors we have into the country. And then we also have to look at what we do as far as our CBNRMs and sustainable tourism as well. And all these put together, I think, would then formulate and give guidance to the sort of policy one could have as to what the Botswana tourism aspect should look like. Now, when I talk about domestic tourism, it's defined by spending one night away from your home, okay? And that may be wherever it is. But what we need to say is, what part of the country are we selling? So if a person's going to their cattle post, is that tourism? But under the definition, it could well be. But when I look at domestic tourism, I talk about initiatives. Initiatives that we've seen. We've had the music festival, the one-week music festival. We've had the My Mountain experience and things like that, where individuals within Botswana have taken the initiative to start up something different. So that is really what I would say to when we take in Botswana to other parts of the country. And it depends also where we host these events. And you're well aware of the Kawa event now, which is very popular and has really taken off. And more recently we had the Makgadi Kgadi Epic, which is the first time we've done Makgadi Kgadi Epic. Then of course we have our international arrivals. And you know, those are people generally who go to our more famous locations around the country. And you know, so it's how we develop a standard to meet their aspirations. And you know, once we've been able to do that throughout the country, we can then say we have a holistic approach to tourism. Currently, I'm working very hard at developing the southern part and the central part of Botswana towards tourism. Our tourism activities in the south are nothing as what they are in the north. But obviously we have the Okavango Delta in the north. So we have to be imaginative about how we get visitors into the south, into the central part and other parts of Botswana as well. And that leads me on to the next part where we talk about our cultural tourism. And the nice thing about our cultural tourism is that we then have communities within those specific areas to then run with those, and then they own that. And and that has really been started off, I think, largely by our National Museum and Monuments, 100 monuments. And we are now rolling out onto the next 100 monuments. So what that would mean is then Botswana then can also understand the culture of other tribes and other locations in the country and be tourists in that aspect as well.
You mentioned sustainability as well as one of the main areas in which we should look at when thinking of a policy or a plan for Botswana tourism.
You know, sustainability is really governed largely by how we use the resource, and that we can continue to use the resource time and time again. And we have management plans In, for example, the Okavango management plans, we're going to be rolling out management plans for our forest reserves, which is another way of diversifying our tourism features. Okay. But we need to make sure that we protect what we have, because the ecosystems that we have are so sensitive, they are so delicate. In the, Tsodilo Hills, for example, where we have in excess of 3,500 rock paintings and things like that, has been a World Heritage Site before the Okavango Delta was. But we've now given it to a community to run. And we need to manage the community to make sure that they also are running it efficiently and that we don't take away from the resource. So when we talk about sustainable, we mean being able to keep it going, even for our grandchildren and their grandchildren, to be able to see the beauty that we have today.
Speaking on foreign tourism and plans to position Botswana to better attract international travelers, Minister Khama says branding is about much more than just putting up billboards.
Branding is not only about what we put out there, it's actually what we do. I don't know if you've noticed on the Travel Channel, you'll see a clip on Botswana which has been put out by Botswana Tourism Organization. And we're very proud of that clip. That clip within 2 or 3 months of running has had 10 million hits. It's unbelievable, And this has been proactive, and that's when we talk about branding Botswana. But branding Botswana doesn't just mean, as I said, putting billboards up and what have you. It means the way we do things, the standards we deliver, the efficiencies that we come up with. Let me give you an example. Internet connectivity in Botswana is unacceptably slow. In fact, there are countries worse off than us who have faster internet, okay? And there doesn't seem to be the motivation to get it going, to deliver. So when we have foreign visitors who come out and see our internet, they get frustrated because they say it's so slow, That's one thing. Second challenge that we have when we brand Botswana, okay? And that the world today is an IT world, okay? The second is airline connectivity, okay? We need to have an efficient airline that runs on time. If we don't, we rely on other people, and they then contain or control that portion of our branding and do what they want with it. And that's why I say, as a nation, do we accept that? And the answer should be no, but the reality is yes, because that's what's happening. And I am so frustrated with areas that I can't control that have a direct impact on our tourism sector, and as a result affect my branding in that respect. So I can't say to you with confidence you will get your flight, because I don't know if Air Botswana will be able to, to fulfill that portion. I can't say to you as an investor, you come and invest, because I don't know if labor will give you a permit or immigration will give you a visa. I don't know, And these are things which are out of my control. I can't say to you, come and set up the fastest internet connectivity, because I don't know if you're going to be able to get that or if you will do it. So these are things that talk to branding Botswana as well. It's not just a billboard. It's not just going out there saying brand Botswana. That's the cheapest and easiest part of it. It's what we actually do that is the brand.
What would you like to see happening in the industry, let's say in the next 10 years?
What I would like to see happen, first of all, I would like to see my ministry get a bigger budget so that we can actually, deliver. Okay, but I understand their constraints, and I've always said in my ministry that no budget is not an excuse not to do anything. Okay, we just have to be imaginative on how we do it. I believe that myself, I'm the sort of go-getter type person. Okay, I love a challenge. I like the challenge because I like to see how I can do things differently. But I also think it's important that we look at the perspective from somebody else's viewpoint. And I think that is where we enlighten. Where we make mistakes time and time and time again is we do it this way because it was done this way yesterday and the day before and the week before that. So why should I change it? Because I'm in a comfort zone. Dare to be different. Dare to be different. My wife says to me, I used to say to her, think out the box. And she would say to me, why don't you just get rid of the box? okay, for an example. So that is really how I operate now. And I must say, ever since I've changed that and dared to be different, I have seen that the opportunities that we have as a nation, Botswana, are amazing. And I'm just going to run through a few of them for you very quickly. We have an ecosystem in the north, which is wetlands, Okavango. We have the pans in the middle. We have Makgadikgadi, then we have CKGR adjacent. And then in the south, we have KTP, okay, Kalahari Transfrontier Park. Now, the one thing that we have that nobody else in our region has is two heritage sites next to each other, which is Trodilo Hills and Okavango. 40 kilometers apart, we have two heritage sites. The other thing that I say to people time and time again is that if you think we are special because we have diamonds, you are wrong. Angola has diamonds, Australia has diamonds, Russia has diamonds, and a few other countries. Sierra Leone has diamonds. If you think we're special because we have Makgadikgadi pans, yes, it's the biggest salt pan in the world, but there are other pans around the world. If you think we're special that we have deserts, you are wrong, because other people have deserts. Namib Desert, I believe, is the oldest desert in the world, and of course the world famous Sahara Desert. But we have one thing that nobody else in the world has. One thing nobody else in the world has, which is the Okavango Delta, the 1000th heritage site. If we cannot make this country special by the virtue that we have something that is special in itself, we have failed ourselves. How do we link those together? That is where it becomes interesting, because that is when we talk about diversity. So in one part of the country you have our wetlands, through the middle you have salt pans, in the south you have a desert. Where else does that happen? Where does it happen within 1500 kilometers in a straight line? It doesn't. In this part of the world, it doesn't happen. So when you look at our geographical location and you look at our ecosystems, we have something that nobody else has. And therefore, it's how we market those specific areas to be able to fully utilize their potential. And that is why we're now coming out with different campsite models, different overland tours, different self-drive in the more marginal areas, because we have people who want to take their own vehicles on a trip, and we need to cater more towards that. We have so many people going through the Linyanti, the Moremi, the Okavango area. It's congested, okay? So we need to now diversify and move that traffic somewhere else. So that is what we're currently working on at the moment. So I would say that, honestly speaking, within about five years, you will see a different face to the tourism, what it looks like in Botswana today, probably even less than 5 years. We have other BTO developed sites like Homoremi, Lipokol and the like. And we are going to be developing those. We have a new one at Kui Harbour Caves as well, okay, which will support the Shai community, okay. So it's exciting. The diversity is just amazing. It really is.
We end our introduction to this topic here this evening, but be sure to tune in next week when the Minister shares his proposed solutions to the efficiency and service challenges he has pointed out. We also look at the issues on most Botswana's minds, that of the ownership of tourist attractions being dominated by foreigners, and that of the tension between tourism interests and that of Botswana's livelihoods, as we have most recently seen in the suspension of the fishing season at Lake Ngami. Welcome back to First Issues, as in this segment of the show, we continue our conversation on diabetes from last week.
The trouble with diabetes is two things. One is it's a chronic disease. It's a very slow, insidious condition. It sort of creeps on the system. So by the time a patient comes and we've detected the sugar is high, and sugar is high if it's more than 5.5 or 6 on our current unit values, we know from research that diabetes has been in that body for between 10 to 15 years. It has been slowly building up to the point of breaking, and eventually the body breaks. It manifests all the complications. And why is it a global issue? Because it has a spin-off and permutations of all sorts of complications. It runs through the body and it wreaks havoc.
Having learned how to identify the disease and even eat better to reduce our chances of getting diabetes and other non-communicable diseases, we now consider the way forward. If one establishes that they do indeed have diabetes, what steps can be taken? What treatments are available for the disease?
The symptoms of diabetes as it's progressing are one of weight loss, because what happens is sugar is energy, and the body needs that energy. It converts that sugar into a series of chemicals that release energy. But that conversion process, the key that unlocks the door into the tissues of your body is insulin. Now, if there's not enough insulin, that sugar just circulates in the body without getting into the tissues. So you're actually dying in the midst of plenty. So when you measure the blood sugar, it's very high. But that sugar is not going into the tissues because insulin is not enough to unlock the door. So the door is locked. So what happens is the body starves. So in the midst of plenty, the body begins to lose weight. So the sign of diabetes is you begin to lose weight. The sign of diabetes is you begin to pass a lot of water because the body is trying to remove that sugar. Sugar is like syrup, and because the body is very concentrated, you drink more water to dilute that syrupy blood. And as a result, the body is trying to wash that sugar out. So the patient will say, I'm getting up very frequently at night, and I have a huge jug of water next to me, and I'm drinking lots of water. I'm emptying my bladder frequently. I'm losing weight. I'm feeling dizzy. These are the symptoms of diabetes. So if you have those symptoms, you must report to your doctor.
The first of the two patients who will share their experience of the disease this evening is 80-year-old former lecturer and environmentalist Doris Mccullough. Originally from California, she has been living in Botswana for 25 years with her husband of 59 years. Having had no record of diabetes in the family, 16 years ago she discovered she had type 2 diabetes quite by chance.
I had been on a month-long safari in South Africa and Namibia, Botswana, and when I arrived back from that safari, I had lost a little bit of weight, which is normally not the case, but anyway, my husband was retiring from U.S. government service, and so we were having some medical tests for end of service. And I happened to take some blood samples to Habaruni Private Hospital that time, and it was International Diabetes Day. And so as I walked in, there were a lot of people there, and they had a long list of what the symptoms were for diabetes. And if you just really had a few of those symptoms and you didn't think things were related, but when you saw all of the things, thirst and a whole list of things, so I decided to go over and get my finger pricked and they could take my blood sample, which they did, and the nurse said, I'm making an appointment with you for the doctor today that you have diabetes. And I was unaware, and no one in my family had ever had it.
Next to share her story is Malusi Liburu, the CEO of Macmillan Botswana since 2003. This grandmother from Serowe has been living with type 2 diabetes for 26 years, and she tells us how she came to be diagnosed in 1989.
Gore ke te ke itse gore ke na le mathata a sukiri. Ke ne le ra ngwa ke ntse hala ke tabe ke ikutwa ke sa ikuti sentle. Jaanong ha ke a ko ngakeng ke mora ke re o itse o ka re pelo a me ga ke ikuti sentle. A ba no o imagine dilo a gona sepe se sentseng yalo se se ka diragala. So tsatsi lengwe le ke ntse ke le mo ofising go diragala. Ke be ke siana ka speed se se rileng ke a go ene ke re khanye ke thorang ke go e bolella utwa gore ke ntse ya a ba nthathoba ba re a ora gore ke go bukele ko Johane re go ise Johane ke be ke re dira sengwe hela a ba re nya mme go siame ke go referle ko ngakeng ngwe ka kwa ke ene o na le di machine o taitha a go check jaanong me be re ke tsena teng a ncheka ba mme sa ka ntseng ga se sone mme ke go check sukiri a ba ncheka sukiri a ba mathata nna ke bona ile sukiri mme le ga le o ska tshoga thata ga ke itse gore ke mathata a kalo re tale ka gore re control ka dijo o bone gore o ja eng ga o je eng re tere bone gore go diragala jaanong ke be ekete le ga nne yanong ke le confused ke le frustrated go nna botoka gore nnyaa o ka re ganke ke nna mo dipilising ke ta hiwa option a gore ke je yang though ke ne ke itse gore le one ke challenge he le tona ga o nna le batho kana ba ja sengwe le sengwe le wena anong o tla bo nna le keletso ya gore o ka tshela sentle hela ka bone wa ja yana go nna go nya mo haoji go nna mathatanyana.
We end this segment with some wise words of advice from our diabetes patients. They say each person diagnosed must adjust to and accept the new reality of living with the disease.
Go nna le sukiri ga se gore go raya gore botshelo jwa gago ga se jone sentle. Ke tsaya gore ke seemo hela se o leng mo go sone. Se e leng gore o tshwanelwa ke gore o se tlwaele o bo itse gore o tshela le yone jang. Ha o simolola hela o e tlwaela gore nya e teng ke nna ke tshela le yone o ta bona e sa go tsenye dingaro gape mo gongwe o bo ipolelela hela gore treatment o e healing o e dirisa ka ngaka go laetse ha gona le mathata a a rileng o bue le ngaka ke sone se se stona se gantsi ha re he bongaka feedback o ta ba go hile dipilisi tseo ha di sa bereke o tsaya wala thela kwa o bolesa nya se dire ya re boela go ene o more gore pilisi tsele tso di mphileng o ka rano ha ke sena go dinwa ga di ntse sente dipilisi di dintse o ta go lekeletsa tse dingwe gape go ithala o bona tse ileng gore nya o ta bona ile gore o nna comfortable ka tsone.
First of all, you have to accept that you have it and you have it for life. It's not going to go away, but you can control it and you can live well. I started with pills, and then when the pills got to be about 20 a day, then I was started on insulin. And so I take two kinds of insulin. I take a short-acting insulin before meals, and that's sort of a guess thing that you know more or less the value of what you're eating, and if you're trying to have a low glycemic diet, like low GI bread or things like that. And then I take long-lasting insulin that goes, supposed to take it once a day, but for me, with my condition of going up and down quickly, I take one in the morning and one in the evening. And so doing that and managing diet and all that I have been able to manage, but I have to be very careful because I can drop quickly. But my husband has been very helpful to help me with that.
We have presented information tonight that can help you be a more practically, physically and mentally healthier member of the workforce if put in use. Until next week and another issue of interest, I, Doris Mccullough, the team behind First Issues and our sponsors, First National Bank, wish you a good night and pleasant viewing.